Hi. If you're looking for a course on Kubernetes services on Microsoft Azure to learn with interactive lectures along with practices, then grab this course. This course fulfills your requirements, and this course title is Learn Microsoft Azure Kubernetes Services. Now, let's go through the course objectives. In this course, you will be learning about the introduction to Microsoft Azure and its architecture with the types of Azure services, followed by prerequisites for Kubernetes cluster in Azure, to deploy an application to AKS cluster and Windows instance, exploring on scale up and scale down of Kubernetes deployment in cluster, persistent volume claims in AKS cluster, accessing the Kubernetes dashboard in AKS. Now, let's understand why is the Microsoft Azure Kubernetes service important. The Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing service from Microsoft. Azure offers a range of software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service options for deploying applications and services on Microsoft managed data center infrastructure. Further, it also helps in building, deploying, and managing a range of apps through its global data center network. In this course, you will learn the fundamentals of Microsoft Azure Kubernetes Services, how to create a resource group in Azure, understanding the architecture of Azure and the types of services, explore on creating Kubernetes cluster on Azure, and further accessing the cluster to deploy the application by building the container image, implementing scaling up and scaling down of Kubernetes deployments in cluster, understanding of persistent volume and volume claim in AKS, and further accessing the AKS Kubernetes dashboard. This course is designed for a specific target audience, such as cloud administrators, DevOps developers, DevOps engineers, cloud developers, and Azure developers. The prerequisites for taking this course are the understanding of basic cloud infrastructure concepts, working knowledge on Windows platform, understanding of basic Windows commands. The course schedule include the lessons and the practices. In the slide, you see the list of 6 lessons, which illustrates the various concepts of Microsoft Azure Kubernetes Services. The course comprises of the Introduction to Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform, create Kubernetes cluster on Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform, deploying applications to Azure Kubernetes Services cluster, scaling Kubernetes deployments in Azure Kubernetes Services cluster, persistent volume claims in AKS cluster, accessing the Azure Kubernetes Services dashboard. This course includes a lot of hands-on using various features of Kubernetes services on Microsoft Azure. This slide lists the practices that you would be doing. That is, in the practice for lesson 1, you would have to learn how to access Microsoft Azure portal and create a resource group in the Azure portal. The practice for lesson 2 includes how to create a Kubernetes cluster on Azure Cloud Platform and access Kubernetes cluster on AKS. The practice for lesson 3 would have you to learn about deploying an application to Kubernetes cluster on Microsoft Azure Cloud Portal and access AKS cluster using Windows Virtual Machine. The practice for lesson 4 includes learning to scale up and scale down an application deployment in Kubernetes cluster on Azure Cloud Portal. The practice for lesson 5 includes how to create persistent volume in AKS, claim the persistent volume in AKS, and further claim the persistent volume to create pod in AKS cluster. The practice for lesson 6 includes How to access the Kubernetes dashboard for Azure Kubernetes Service cluster and deploy an application in the Kubernetes dashboard. To do the practice in this course, you need to set a practice environment, which includes a Windows platform system with internet, command prompt installed in Windows system, Windows PowerShell installed in the system. Now, at the end, let me summarize the information that you have got. That is, detailed course objectives, course description based on the objectives, course target audience, prerequisites for taking up this course, detailed course schedule, practice environment used in the course to do the practice.